We are live.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Nope. Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 1 o'clock where we are. My name is Maggie Ullman, and I'd like to welcome you. Today is our September 16th Planning, Economic Development, and Environment Committee meeting for the City of Asheville. And we are remote. All staff and guests and committee members are all virtual. To help our audience follow along, I'll read each section of the agenda aloud as we move. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the link on the front page of our website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those joining us, welcome. For today's meeting, we do have the option for folks to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment, use the number 855-925-2801, meeting code 8187. Your phone will be muted. You'll hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers need to push *3 to enter the speaking queue. Before we jump into the agenda, I'm going to do a roll call for our committee members and staff. I ask that you can maybe come off mute and say a quick hello. Councilwoman Sage Turner.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Councilwoman Kim Roney.
Good afternoon.
Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Good afternoon.
Carly Gillingham, our Assistant City Attorney.
Good afternoon.
Ashley Hare, our Director of Transportation.
Good afternoon.
Stephanie Dahl, our Director of Planning and Urban Design.
Hello, everyone.
Badilla Satvika, our Urban Planner. Haven't seen you in a while on these. Nice to see you.
Hi, folks. Nice to see you.
Badilla. Rachel Taylor, our Economic Development Division Manager.
Good afternoon.
And Lucy Crown, our Transportation Planning Manager.
Hello.
We also have a guest who I'll welcome now and then introduce in a little bit as well. Clark Duncan, welcome. We're happy you're here. You're the Executive Director and Senior Vice President for the Economic Development Coalition of Asheville-Buncombe County. We're really glad that you're joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, let's go over to our agenda. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from our August 19th, 2025 committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Great, and as is our practice, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Turner?
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney?
Aye.
Myself, aye. The motion passes. Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, moving on to our second agenda item, we have a guest, Clark Duncan's from our region's Economic Development Coalition, which is a partnership of many, many players so that we can look at economic development as a whole, as a team, as a collaboration. And we've asked him to join us partly because this partnership is so important and a major function for how the city participates in economic development, but also as we look to be using these committee meetings to be gathering snapshots into our purview and kind of looking at data along the way. We really want to hear from the Economic Development Coalition as you all are embarking on a new strategic plan, and to understand as we turn the corner looking towards our strategic planning as a council to make sure that we're collaborating and building coalition with other leaders in the community. So thank you for joining us. I believe you have a presentation, and this is really for information sharing, but maybe some interesting discussion. And again, thanks for coming.
Thank you. And thank you, Rachel, for driving. Gosh, good afternoon, members of council and staff. It's really a pleasure to be with you at kind of this critical time in economic recovery. The next slide, I always like to start with introducing that the EDC is celebrating actually our 32nd year in partnership this year with the city and the county and the private sector through the Asheville Area Chamber, focusing on our common ground goals and a shared mission, right, of economic diversification and wage growth, expanding economic opportunity, and of course, tax-based growth that supports the needs and ambitions of local government. In our brief time together today, I want to take a quick look back at the momentum of the regional economy going into the storm, right? Like how healthy was the body before the injury? It's going to impact its recovery. And then offer a brief look at the strategies and special recovery projects in the ABL 5x5 plan moving forward. On the next slide, you'll see that despite a 5-year cycle that began in pandemic and ended in natural disaster, our community set a number of records in new jobs and wage growth and corporate investment. With specific gratitude to these 9 companies for their commitments that total over 1,500 new jobs at over $60,000 average wages and a record-setting $1.06 billion in new capital investment in the community. And notably, both Pratt, GE, and System Logistics announced not one, but 2 physical expansions over the period of time featured here from 2020 to 2025. On the next slide, these outcomes, of course, are augmented by the programs of Venture Asheville, which we launched over a decade ago to round out and candidly make a much more comprehensive economic development strategy committed to growing our own here in Asheville and Buncombe. Venture Asheville program served over 125 startups over the past 5 years, facilitating over $45 million in venture equity and angel investment in these firms that stimulated approximately $76 million in new local sales revenues. On the next slide, you'll see in terms of economic impact, these 12 announcements alone support over 2,200 new direct, indirect, and induced jobs, which includes those jobs that are supported, for example, by supply chain spending or new household labor income, representing $134 million in new household labor for homes in Buncombe County, and over $800 million in annually recurring impact. Of course, on the next slide, new household income impacts more than the well-being of the family, but local government generating sales, use, and income taxes, for example, is illustrated here. And even beyond the impacts of labor income, focusing just on the top 20 taxpayers in Buncombe County, our organization, the EDC, has facilitated the recruitment or expansion of 9 of those top 20 taxpayers, representing assessed value well in excess of $1.15 billion. So we are fast approaching an unfortunate anniversary. And as we launched our plan last July, we reconvened post-storm with the understanding that the ABL 5x5 was going to take on new meaning to accelerate economic recovery. And we asked dozens of local partners on the next slide, Rachel, really the value of economic development in such a pivotal time. How can we not just use the tools of economic development to catch up to where we were on September 26th, but to continue to accelerate and exploit economic growth trends in this period of recovery? This following clip, if the video gods agree with us, is honestly just a couple minutes long, but reflects some of the feedback we got.
On September 27th, Western North Carolina awoke to a changed landscape. We reached for our families and loved ones and cared for our neighbors and communities. Many stepped up, reported for shift, or answered the call of duty. In those moments of strength, generosity, and resolve, our path to recovery began. With each passing day, the future of Western North Carolina becomes clearer.
All right, let's get it. The comeback begins with me.
With me.
With me.
With us.
The comeback begins with us.
Let's go.
Recovery means building back stronger and more resilient. The future is our opportunity.
The future is bright.
The future is so bright.
Recovery means full sidewalks, full occupancy, and full employment.
I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
This community is bonded.
Economic development means better jobs,
higher wages, and more services for the people of my hometown.
Economic development is bringing the next generation into manufacturing.
Economic development is the strength of this community.
The future depends on every one of us being all in.
Recovery is an opportunity
to come back stronger and better than we were before. Recovery means preserving our vibrant creative spirit.
The comeback begins with me.
With me.
With me.
The comeback begins with us.
Economic development is investing in jobs and local startups.
The future is greater resiliency.
Our students are adapting and thriving.
The future is built on collaboration with a commitment to progress.
Recovery means we're back, but we're back better.
Recovery means showing up for one another on a regular basis.
Recovery to me is lifting people up and caring for our community.
Recovery means a full pint glass.
The future is creating opportunities for our youth.
Economic development is about inclusiveness and making sure that everyone can participate and contribute to the economy.
Economic development is the lifeblood of the Asheville community.
Economic development is about second chances.
Economic development is Industry 4.0.
The comeback begins now with me and you.
Together, we are the comeback.
Our recovery is about the generosity and goodness of people.
We have a long road ahead, but let's do this together.
The future is Asheville.
Stronger than ever.
The future is together.
Asheville is stronger than the storm.
Thank you for indulging me. We did that earlier in the year, and I think we all still need a little opportunity to lift our spirits from time to time. Through 9 months of pretty extensive board, investor, and community engagement across 5 workshops and a public facing survey launched live on air with WLOS, we heard some pretty consistent themes. On the next slide there, Rachel. The first was be smart. Education remains the key to economic mobility. So you're going to see some exciting generational investments in education and credentials and training, as well as some bold new goals around STEM career growth and apprenticeships. Second was be ambitious. And despite the very real setbacks that we continue to deal with, we also heard consistently that now is not the time to lower our expectations as a community. We earn the right every 5 years to become more ambitious about what we expect of ourselves. And finally, we were encouraged to think longer term. There was this recurring request for like a community vision that would both drive recovery and look beyond the horizon to what was possible for the next generation here in Asheville and Buncombe County. So on the next slide, we will turn real quickly to strategy 1, which begins first and foremost with taking care of our industry employers that are already here and building capacity for future expansion. Led by our industry services director, Ashley Swanner, the stability of our workforce and the skills needed for advancement of our workforce were the leading concerns post-storm among our existing business industry community. And in response, planning is already underway for a signature innovation hub that we've dubbed the Futures Factory. You may have seen the county just approved, the county commission just approved use of an application for a $35 million EDA grant with AB Tech as lead applicant. And it will serve as a first of its kind collaboration, including 6 community colleges and 6 state universities focused on the certifications and degrees and curriculum and applied research in the fast changing landscape of advanced manufacturing. I think this is a real game changer. On the next slide, we're going to talk about strategy 2. Which shifts our focus from the primary goal of retention and expansion to utilizing the tools of recruitment. And much in the same way that, for example, Explore Asheville is leading the return of messaging to visitors, our organization has to undertake similar messaging to prospects and those that influence site selection decisions, that Buncombe County is open for business, that our workforce is sound, and that our buildings and roads and infrastructure are capable of meeting the needs of consistent economic growth of their business. And we're currently planning to host about a dozen national site selectors in October of this year for community tours that really showcase the progress and resilience of the community. Looking forward to that. Strategy 3 on the next slide builds upon our previous decade of success in Venture Asheville programming, recognizing, unfortunately, that startup activity and the new business creation and confidence needed for those things really comes to a halt on the heels of natural disaster. Not surprising. The very backbone of the North Carolina economy, of course, remains small businesses and entrepreneurship, and those are the most impacted and the least able to endure the financial hardships post-storm. So determined to catalyze our next Poppy's Popcorn, our next French Broad Chocolates, the first cohort of our Optimus Ventures Accelerator has already launched this summer with a unique model of venture philanthropy that will deploy $1 million to fund 20 startups, combining grants, $25,000 in grants, with $50,000 in, another $25,000 in venture funding to each of our participating startups. Very excited about this unique model to incentivize entrepreneurial growth in a time and in an economy that relies on continuous feeding of that part of our economy. Moving on to strategy 4, we remain committed to workforce programming that connects our community to economic opportunity. And we found that's a critical bridge that we have to continue to pay attention to. So catalyzing economic mobility through our trusted and growing network of inclusive hiring partners that today include over 17 local not-for-profit agencies that offer case management with over 35 local employers. And it's not surprising, of course, to find that our entry-level workers were also most at risk post-storm and least able to bridge the income gap often created by disasters like this. So in response, we are relaunching the Accelerator Buncombe Trades Accelerator, which was initially funded with ARPA dollars through the county some 5 years ago. And this accelerated apprenticeship model will maintain a laser focus on a key theme throughout the 5x5, which is STEM talent pipelines that pay significantly higher wages and are in demand by local employers and, of course, the economy of our future, while facilitating economic mobility in this era of continued uncertainty. And finally, the 5th strategy, rounding us out on the next slide, thanks, Rachel, relies on the expertise of our in-house talents. My Senior Director of Research, Heidi Reiber, and her organization that we have named Riverbird Research, that leverages the power of authoritative data, defensible data, to drive better decision-making. And I think if we learned anything in that first month was how critically important actionable data is in a time of natural disaster and how hard it is to come by when our communication channels are compromised. In response, our Riverbird team, led by Heidi and Caleb Parsons, have already launched the first of 3 broad-based business impact surveys. The first at the 6-month anniversary, the second will launch this month at the 1-month anniversary, and again, 18 months in. So we can best understand from a policy perspective or an economic development perspective, what is the impact on the long-term trajectory of individual businesses and our overall economy as we continue to pull into recovery. I'm going to close with a quick look at some pretty ambitious goals, which include average wages of $85,000 for the jobs we announce over the next 5 years, targeting over 5,000 new jobs in target sector industries, and over $1 billion in new investment, $30 million in private capital to be acquired by our startups, and successfully completing the first cohort of 20 Optimist Venture startups, and ideally starting a second cohort that would take us beyond 20. Along the bottom there of the slide, you'll see the target industries that we've arrived at through a data analysis that is part focusing on what we're already really skilled at in this community, and also some aspiration for jobs we want to see more of. And these span the spectrum from creative and advanced manufacturing, which is a historical strength here in the West, to advanced mobility, which is really this emerging sense of the innovation and really the transformation you're seeing in the automotive sector, in the aviation sector, and increasingly point-to-point navigation, for example, on your phone. We'll also continue to exploit new opportunities in software and IT. If there was one really interesting piece of data we found in our analysis as we looked over our shoulder for the past 5 years, was that the Asheville metro region launched software firms at 3 times the national rate over the last 5 years. No doubt enhanced by this in-migration of mobile talent. So our challenges as a community is how can we harness that talent base and put it to work in local employers. And finally, continuing to see growth in professional services, which continue to bring high wage and innovation opportunities to our residents. I think I'm going to close there and ask your forgiveness for hopefully not talking too fast, but maybe engage in any questions and maybe opportunities for collaboration that I see with our city partners. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Clerk. When you look back at the previous 5-year strategy to this 5-year strategy, did you find yourself doubling down on anything, moving away from anything, or having distinctive pivots?
I think, like the city, we're facing some unique opportunities because of recovery funding streams. So, for example, Optimist Ventures pivoted away from a private investment model to a venture philanthropy model because of this outpouring of private philanthropy we saw post-storm. And to be able to offer a local startup a $50,000 investment, half of which is a forgivable grant, they're going to be paying $36,000 back on a $50,000 investment without giving up equity, which is really more who we are as a community. While I think we'd applaud unicorns and exits as they come, our market is really geared towards building long-term sustainable businesses that want to be headquartered in Asheville. And so how do we find funding tools that fit that model for who we really are inherently? So that's one example where you see a pivot. In terms of target industries, obviously we remain keenly focused on making the makerspace and manufacturing space, which still pays on average about $85,000 as an industry sector in the 4 counties of the metro region. So we see a great opportunity for economic mobility there. One great trend I think we see that because of some of the challenges of the previous 5 years is that employers are increasingly hiring to and opening opportunities up for entry-level hires. And here's what I mean. I think the low barrier of employment is important as a community, that we're creating economic opportunities that are easily accessible, but that then create educational investments that allow them to seize educational opportunities that bring economic mobility. And so we're in 2019, when we were planning for the 5x5, we weren't thinking as much about short-term credentials and speeding the educational and upskilling process as we are today. The COVID labor shortage, I think, informed a little bit of that. And while it's better than it was, I think we're going to continue to operate in a market where labor constraints will be top of mind. So how can we best equip every household with greater access to skills and credentials?
Thanks. I had another question about the Futures Factory Innovation Hub. I've been hearing a lot about it. Just could you elaborate a little bit about what I see that it really ties to your strategy around capacity building within the current workforce and probably on ramps to more education, obviously, but could you just talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. I think it helps us clear one hurdle, which is a constraint we hear about every 5 years, which is Western North Carolina is not home to an R1 university, right? So lower your expectations, right? Is kind of the interpretation I hear when I hear that. So bringing that collaborative approach to North Carolina universities and community colleges under one roof to me is very exciting. But very simply put, I think of it through two lenses. One, it's workforce development and a consolidation of AV Tech's fantastic advanced manufacturing training skills into a state-of-the-art building with the right ceiling heights and the right capacity to attract increased investment in better machinery and technologies to train workforce. But really the other half of that building is focusing not on workforce development, but on workplace development. And if we think about the 250 some manufacturers in the city of Asheville and Buncombe County today, vast majority of those are locally owned and operated. And how can they get access to really the innovation they need to be investing in their workplace so they're around for the next generation? We know our multinationals are investing readily those kind of skills and innovation and new technologies, but how can we help the entirety of our economy have access to that same level of engagement? And we've toured a couple of these manufacturing institutes. If that rings a bell, it was back under the Obama administration. The federal government created 13 of these institutes to really catalyze education and advanced manufacturing in the states. And we've toured two that each sort of take a different approach. Ours will be much more closely tied to our community college and university systems, but they invite solution providers like Fanuc Robotics or Siemens CNC machinery into those facilities for demonstration purposes and training purposes to help modernize local workplaces.
Great. Thank you so much. Kim, I see your hands up.
Yeah, thank you, Clark. I have a couple buckets of questions just to kind of get this started, and hopefully we'll have more conversations.
Okay.
One is we set a goal in our recovery at the retreat level for council, just kind of generally around retaining beyond the data and expectations of what happens after natural disaster in communities. This is going to be an extra challenge for us as partners because we don't yet have grants for these businesses in our community that already had, for example, SBA loans from 2020. So we want to grow local living wage businesses and cooperatives. I'm thinking especially of our local exportable goods, including brewing and distilling, art and music, manufacturing that has a deep history in Appalachia, like pottery, and East Fork was on the slide earlier. So if we're going to grow local, have you identified something in our processes that need updates as far as like incentives? Are there gaps in addition to, the shortage of land to grow these kinds of manufacturing and businesses?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, we have to be cognizant of what those constraints are. And you mentioned sites and buildings will remain maybe a perennial challenge in here because of our topography. I think we're making some significant investments in workforce readiness through this plan, which I think is something we have to always be thinking about from K through 12 to 2-year to 4-year. And then in terms of, and maybe this is where you're going is really the tools of government. I think we have gotten better over time at focusing incentive policies that ask for and set expectations that align with those of our city and our county. And I think there's a great opportunity to take a look at those policies to make sure they continue to align and put carrots where, for example, the city would like to see them. We went through this process at the county level 3 or 4 years ago, and for example, put in some accelerator bonuses around hiring practices and around use of local suppliers or around investment in green and sustainable technologies. And so I think often at the early stages when companies are thinking about, hey, if I'm going to spend $1 million or if I'm going to spend $100 million, those are the stages to be having those conversations about what our hopes and aspirations are as a community, especially if we're going to use the tools of, for example, incentives which are available to us.
That's exactly what I was thinking about too. It's so exciting when, local businesses come to us and seeking partnership, and they want to be an employer of choice. So they're looking at living wages and being a second chance employer, and that means hiring our incumbent residents. So it's truly connecting our recovery to the people who live and work here, make our area special. But I'm also thinking about, because we've had a lot of young folks in our community, I'm thinking specifically of Sunrise Movement, watching these meetings and providing comment in these meetings. And that's such an amazing responsibility to create this public record where our young people are demanding a hopeful future. So when I hear a Green New Deal, I realize that's calling not just for climate resiliency, but also good paying jobs for a hopeful future and improving the social determinants of health. So maybe you can speak a little bit about the vision for STEM and tech in the face of AI. I'm thinking specifically, like we've talked and thrown around the idea of a jobs dashboard, maybe some data on jobs that we've retained in addition to ones that we've gained, and our strategies around that. I'm not sure if you're already tracking that or how we might look at that better, just to kind of like claim our wins as we go.
Yes, retention numbers are hard because if we successfully avoid a community exit, it's rare that folks advertise that. But I think the number that I look at most often is our workforce number and the growth of that number. And we've seen significant growth in our workforce even since like 2019, which I think is going to be important for continued growth in the overall economy. In terms of, trying to think of another way to look at that question.
Yeah, it might require some follow up and just chewing on it together and coming back for some more conversation, because as this person who works with young people, I'm noticing that, like, for example, graphic design jobs in the days of AI, it's getting harder for people to break into the industry because AI is competing. AI is not doing our laundry; it's making our art and music, and it really like hurts my heart. But I'm also noticing that the trades and building our infrastructure could be really hopeful, especially when so many of our neighbors that are in those trades right now are starting to age out of the industry. So it's not something like you would necessarily track so much as like, I don't know where that retention fits in, but I know that I would love for folks who are looking for a new job or want to stay in the area and are looking for good paying jobs, for those jobs not just go out to other states, but to keep those jobs and those good paying jobs here.
Well, we're living through, right, this decadal change, and AI is something that I think every 5 years for the last probably 20 years people have been talking about it, but it's here now. And I think our challenge is retooling folks into industries that make use of AI but are not replaced by AI. And the fact of the matter is we're seeing those transitions as well. Like you mentioned graphic design being impacted, but there are significant shifts in which industry sectors are eliminating jobs wholesale and which are actually have the opportunity to create jobs wholesale in ways that use AI to their advantage. AI, robotics, cybersecurity, automation, those are all skills that I think are going to be embedded in, well, they're kind of make up sort of this revolution around Industry 4.0 or Industry 5.0. And I think that's what we're hoping to focus the Future Factory on, which is helping our workforce and our workplace come to terms with how to use those tools. And our challenge here in this call is how to use them for job creation and keep our workforce focused on the opportunities and steering away from, I think, what will be some inevitable loss across the national economy because of it.
Thank you, Clark.
Go for it.
Thanks. And thanks, Clark. Thanks for being here. It's great to see you. Some good information. These updates every 5 years, they just keep coming faster. It seems time is moving quickly.
Yesterday, right?
It feels like it was. So just a couple side thoughts that are kind of may feel a little left field, but I feel like maybe could weigh in and could be a good seed in your head. We have a really strong community partner, a particular business, no need to mention the name, but they're a really strong community partner. They also hold a lot of assets that are undeveloped, parcels of land. And I get it. It's who knows what the strategy is, protection of their own business model. My question is, do you all ever perhaps work with such type landowners to try and come up with alternative solutions? Say, let's assume their fear is competition for their type of business model.
Yeah.
We could approach them about a totally different business model. And I say this because I know there's there's just a lot of land out there. There's few land available for these types of things, but there's a lot of land held privately that could be. And I just wonder if you all act in that domain at all, or if there's anything I could do to help encourage that. And then the second thing, which is going to be totally different, is we just had a housing and community development meeting a couple hours ago. I don't know if you ever tune into our YouTube channel and watch, but it might be a good one to watch the last 30, 40 minutes of. We started talking about anti-displacement strategies for our residents. But in the end, we also started talking about replacement strategies, and we started talking about the businesses that used to be. And I love when you mention how important our small independent businesses are. And I'm wondering if in this strategy of developing future growth and future, protecting what's here and growing what's here, and if there's also a rebirthing of what was I don't know how to say it, but I just want to plant a little seed. Like if we could help foster businesses that we lost, say, to the practices of urban renewal or something, and help grow some of what was lost during those times in an effort to strengthen our community, I would be really interested in what that could look like, or, if that kind of sentiment's out there. But it's more just a seed to plant, and maybe worth watching the HCD meeting today. But I would love to know if you all, jumping back to the land issue, do anything like that. The former question.
I think land use planning's going to remain a really sort of critical topic, right? And in a community that is and likely will always be land constrained, like how we plan for highest and best use is got to be part of the economic development discussion. So do I work with the private sector is a general question. Yes. And that's all of our land is currently held. We don't have any publicly held parcels in Buncombe. So those are the cards we're dealt here in Asheville and Buncombe. And yeah, anyway, I could be constructive to that conversation. Would welcome that. I think protecting, this wasn't your question, but I'll inject it, protecting space for our economic development goals and aspirations to be accomplished is got to be part of how we think about the future. And I think bringing new opportunities, to your point, to the table for reimagining is also part of that solution.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben.
Hey, thank you Chair Ullman, and if council's done before we leave this topic, I'd like to invite Rachel Taylor, our Economic Development Division Manager. And Rachel, I think it's a good opportunity very briefly to tell council, this committee, how the work of your department kind of connects with Clark, and maybe both of you could kind of tie some of that into what we're looking at in terms of economic recovery over the next couple of years as well. So maybe you can conclude us in that way, Rachel, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Clark, for sharing an updated overview of your 5x5 strategy. I just want to kind of share for this committee. One of the first calls that I probably made after checking in on all of our staff was, I think, to Clark. It's hard to remember back to exactly the steps, but after the storm, we were trying to connect with our private sector partners, and Clark, you and your team are absolutely vital to that process. So just the power of relationships is so, it was great to see kind of how we were able to get a lot of things done, both kind of pre-storm and in that context too. So the work that my team does and that our department does, really, I put relationships at the front of that. It really is about connecting those dots. I've been really excited about this 5x5 strategy. I can really see a lot of the city in it. And I think that was because there was a really intentional process to engage different, types of staff members into the conversation. So we can definitely align on those target industries, building out our toolbox. You all had some conversation around that today. And then leaning into those partnerships as well. The city is part of a group called Carolina West. That's a regional economic development group. So kind of leaning into that regional approach for economic development, connecting the dots, relationship building. And then, as Clark mentioned, we have some amazing opportunities to support local business growth, development, and workforce development as well. So, and then we partnered with Heidi and her team on those business impact surveys. And so we want to continue to lean into Heidi and her expertise for economic impact, data analysis, and kind of an authoritative voice there. So Clark, I'll pass it over to you to add to that.
Well, let me also recognize that Rachel's currently chairing the Carolina West Economic Development Partnership. So thanks for your leadership, Rachel. Yeah, the EDC is, I consider myself still, after 15 years or so, a student of public-private partnership, but I so value this relationship that when we are having success with in the startup community or in manufacturing or the headquarters, staying, being retained, or growing or moving to the community, we do that work on behalf of this council and of the commission. So I always welcome your input on how to target that and keep our plans as aligned as they can be, especially in this era of recovery that we're now in. I think we've all gotten the education that we didn't necessarily want in life and in public service, and but I'm really encouraged that the work of economic development will be a part of healing the households of the region, and so we can approach that through workforce preparation, and we can approach that through strengthening business and economic opportunity. But together we have to continue to keep those things connected, because one without the other isn't accomplishing our goal of connecting economic opportunity to those households. And I think the city's played a very large part over the last several iterations of our 5x5 plan of keeping that that ethos in our focus. So I appreciate that.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that connective tissue, Rachel, all the work you do. And Clark, really appreciate you joining us and kind of giving us an insight into where the coalition is heading, and really good food for thought as we continue to dig into the recovery resources we steward and the role that we play as partners and the incentives we steward. So thanks so much.
I really appreciate the invitation and thanks for all you're doing on those connected pieces. Housing is going to be such a critical part of our return as well. And it's such an important building block for growing the economy. So cheers to the city for all of your efforts. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Absolutely. And you are welcome to stay and you are welcome to jump off. We're going to talk about Patton Avenue redevelopment opportunities. But again, feel free to jump off if you have other engagements.
I have to run and I have 2 tacos that have been calling my name. But I will watch out. I will grab that video. Thank you for the recommendation, Sage.
Yeah, great. All right, we will move on to the third agenda item, which is a Patton Avenue report, findings and next steps, where Vidila Satvika is going to go over some of that information with us. Welcome, Vidila.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. My name is Vidila Satvika. I'm an urban planner with Department of Planning and Urban Design. I am also here with the Director of Transportation, Ashley Hare, and with Steph Munson-Dahl, Director of Planning and Urban Design. So anything that comes up, we got you covered. We began the downtown Patton Avenue corridor and feasibility study about 2 years ago. It was supposed to take a year, but with the hurricane and a lot of our refocusing work, it kind of drug on. And so we're just bringing it to you now after about 2 years. Let me go through some key takeaways that we hope to connect here during this little talk. And there's a lot of text here, so I'll kind of try to run through them. First, we contracted with a consulting company, McAdams, and invested about $260,000 in this study to help us create a vision for the part of Patton Avenue between the river and Pack Square. The goal of the overarching goal of the work here was not only to recommend safe multimodal transportation plan for that area, but also to come up with better ideas for the future land use for properties along those corridors and making sure that they align with the various cities' plans and goals. We integrated a lot of input from the public and key partners. We had a project working group that was comprised of about 20 different stakeholders covering the private sector, nonprofit, public sector. We'll talk about that a little bit. A key part of this was trying to make a gateway to the downtown. Currently, as you know, you approach downtown from the west and you drive through a sea of on-ramps and off-ramps and excess right-of-way. And we believe that that can be a much better gateway, really bringing people into a significant entrance to the downtown. We have some preliminary cost estimates that we'll talk through these conceptual plans. And we'll talk about next steps and how we can move these ideas forward. Any questions before I move forward? Okay. So this is the area that the study reviewed, the blue shaded area from the river to Pack Square. I've highlighted in yellow the outline that is a particularly interesting part of the study area for a couple reasons. One, it has the most potential for change because it is part of the I-26 project that is being reworked, as you know. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. And at the same time, it's not directly under our control. So it is also very tricky in that we are involved in a sort of an indirect way with NCDOT negotiations with them. And so it is both a challenging area and the part that has the most opportunity. I will say that our work with NCDOT has been really fruitful, and we've been making really great progress in our interactions with them over the last year and more. There are 6 goals that are stated for this project in the report. One, as I mentioned, is to transform this into a really attractive gateway for the city. Another is to set the stage for development to lead to a good mixed use corridor. You can think of what we're trying to do and what a lot of city plans have discussed is trying to pull the downtown toward the river, right? So that we have the mixed use fabric of the downtown that has, both ground floor active uses and other uses up above. Whereas today, a lot of the corridor is very much more of a suburban style development. We'd like to see that be more consistent with the downtown. Another goal is trying to make it a much safer environment for all road users. So this is looking at how to improve the facilities for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders. And that aligns with the following bullet, making this a real multimodal facility into downtown. And the last two bullets, trying to strengthen the connections between downtown and some of the other neighborhoods. So using this project as a real connector and making sure that we align those connections with the network of multi-use paths. So it's not just linking neighborhoods, but the different ways that people can get around. A couple of photos on the right here is an image of the project working group while we were on a tour. There were 5 different meetings of the project working group. Some of them were in person, some of them were virtual. On the left is one of 2 public meetings. We had over 100 participants and we got a lot of good input from them as well. So I'm going to jump into really the 3 big concepts that are coming out of this plan. And the first one is a new connection that would link Hilliard Avenue, creating a Hilliard Avenue extension to Patton Avenue. This was seen as a really important network connection because currently the traffic that goes from Patton Avenue down to Hilliard Street bottlenecks every day and it backs up. And if we can add another connection here, one new road would reduce the number of cars having to go through that Patton-Klingman intersection, and it would just make the level of service for all vehicles and all users in this part of downtown much better for the long-term foreseeable future. So that's a key long-term change that is recommended. Another is these 2 roundabouts. The roundabouts would make traffic operations better. They really depend on that Hilliard Avenue extension to be really effective, but having them alone would reduce the number of crashes, improve safety, and improve traffic operations. But there's a lot of challenge with that too, because we need quite a bit of right-of-way to make those happen. And the third major recommendation is to do a 4-to-3 conversion on the part of Patton Avenue between Klingman and primarily Pritchard Park, but extending effectively what is on the books for going through Pack Square. This is also called a road diet. This is what we did on Merriman Avenue. The good news is that traffic volumes here are significantly lower than what was on Merriman Avenue when we conducted that. So it warrants the conversion to 3 lanes with bike lanes. It's just a question of getting the resources and then creating a final plan and then making it happen, whether that is through temporary materials or through a capital reconstruction. So here are the estimated costs from these conceptual plans. The roundabouts and the road extension are a little bit over 11 million, and the 4-to-3 conversion about 2 million, totaling a little over $3 million. So some of the recommendations moving forward, these are sort of logical outcomes from what you saw. We need to, in time, secure rights of way so that we can actually move forward real designs. We need to continue our partnerships, primarily with NCDOT, to finalize what's going to happen on that section between the bridge and Klingman. We need to find a way to advance further design work for things like the Klingman Avenue or the Hilliard Avenue extension and the roundabouts, because these are really just concepts. We have to go into final design to see ultimately how much right of way we're going to need, and then to build up the real estimates. And then we need to think about redevelopment parcels, what kind of zoning might be applicable to those in time, and then coordinate all of the funding and think through prioritizing to what extent we want to prioritize which aspects of these different parts of the plan. So that's sort of the big picture. I will leave it at that and open up for questions, and we can take it from there.
Kim?
Thank you, Vidila. I'm sure as these plans, have more opportunities for the public to see them, including meetings like this, we'll hear a lot of input. Obviously, having the highest bike pedestrian accident ratio again in the state of North Carolina per capita isn't good for business. It's not good for the people who live and work here, and it's not good for our visitors either. So anything that we can do to improve safety for every commuter, regardless of the mode of transportation they're using, improves our health and well-being for our whole community. One of the things that I'm curious about is that's a pretty big price tag is staff, where is this at in the list of priorities, and what kind of funding streams are we pursuing?
Well, I think I can start by saying that we've just recently finished this. And so I think we're at a point where the community just needs to think about this project in light of all the other priorities that we have, and to start having a community conversation about how much of a priority this is. And then having those conversations about where it stands, and if we want to fund it more quickly, what else takes kind of the back burner, goes to the back burner.
Of course. And then how does the I-26 connector project changes impact this study?
So that's the connection that's there off to the west from that roundabout that you see in the diagram on the screen. And we are currently coordinating with DOT to come up with design solutions that would facilitate this design going into place once we have the funding for it. So we're in those discussions with them currently and working towards a solution that they would be integrating into their design documents for the connector construction.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, building on the, oh, sorry, Sage, go for it. Okay. We're going to out nice each other. Thank you. Thinking about the resource capture, it just bring up something we haven't talked about since we passed the bonds, or since the voters approved of the bonds in November 2024, that a lot of the conversation was to get in a recurring bond cycle. And as we all know, 20 million of the 80 million that the voters approved was for transportation. And so I like that we are, we always have a need for sidewalks and for greenways and for pothole repairs. And so I know that we're going to use that 20 million really well. And we have a long list of things from the GAP plan and other needs. And I feel like this project is really interesting because there's a lot of goals it could be achieving, as well as the multimodal infrastructure. It really has redevelopment potential and downtown health potential. So yeah, just maybe it's a broader note to pin for my colleagues and city management of, yeah, we should probably start talking about, are we going to look at a 2-year, 4-year cycle? What has changed given sales tax projection changes after Helene, but there's no shortage of big infrastructure needs in our community around transportation. And I think this work that you've led, Vidila, really sets us up and prepares us well to have good information as we look at those longer term cycles of funding and needs. Sage?
So maybe someone can help me understand when I meet with Joe Minicozy about I-26. So I'll go there in your brains real quick. He talks about this section coming into downtown being some enormous number of lanes and then jotting down to the 4 to migrate into our downtown. And he says, in theory, that is because there will be a future project. Is that really a thought? Is that something we should be talking about in the scope of something like that? Because what I understood is that it will be wider there because it will be wider further as it approaches downtown one day. I don't really know. Yeah, and Steph, I see your face. So help me walk through this because I'm not sure if there's a concern here or if I am misconstruing something that a community member has explained to me. But as we start to approach redeveloping and investing our money, because what I just heard was like, you're talking with DOT about making sure programmatically their end meets our need to start. And that sounds like it's in the plans. So do we have to worry about this? Do we just keep charging forward? Is there a multi-lane thing coming at us too wide, suggesting there's future wider lanes coming to some of these areas already? I know.
Actually, I was going to see if you wanted to.
I know it's a big
answer.
I mean, I think I get the question. I'm not really sure exactly what cross-section changes are being referenced there with like a wider set of lanes, because what DOT has in there, I mean, the plans are still being worked through, right, at their level for building the connector, but it more or less matches what's shown here.
I thought it was like 8 lanes or something, shrunk down suddenly to hit downtown.
So I think this might be a reference to a different section and not to this section.
I mean, this is the section I thought it was. Okay, so maybe I am mostly confused. So I will not continue to derail us and I can talk off.
I think that I would say
this is what I thought though. I mean, this is where he was pointing.
The more important thing is that staff is actively working with NCDOT right now on what that cross section will be, connecting from the bridge. So, that's existing infrastructure. And yes, you can design lane widths on the existing infrastructure, but I think what I'm hearing is different in my mind than.
Yeah, what he's saying is it can be a future project. This isn't shown in any drawings now, but there are components of the current that are suggesting there's a future. I don't need to derail us. I figured one of you might know.
Maybe Vidila has his hand raised. He might know something that we don't.
Well, I don't necessarily know something you don't, but I'll say that it has been our understanding through this study and a lot of the community input that we've received over many years that the community goal is to try to minimize the footprint as much as possible so that we can have the pattern of development along this portion that's to the left of what we're seeing here, to the left of Klingman Avenue, to best match the downtown footprint, which is effectively a 2-lane road. And whether the ultimate design here in time, immediately or in the near future, does that, the best that we can minimize this footprint and bring this the number of lanes down to 2 lanes, or you could have wide sidewalks because we want public realm. So we don't want necessarily the worst of downtown, which in many instances is too constrained. We want some room for all of that, but that has been the goal, and we're like Steph is saying in negotiation, and Ashley is negotiating with DOT, and hopefully we get to a result where we have a very small footprint on the road, leading to more opportunity for the parcels to be developed.
Okay. If I only focus on to the right of this yellow box and into downtown and so on. Awesome. Amazing. Looks great. Don't know how, to Kim's point, like don't know where we have this in our stack of priorities, but you know, to Maggie's point, we could fund it with future bonds, but it's more about this connection because I'd hate for us to do something and plan something that's amazing and it just be removed later by a larger plan. I'll stop there though. We don't need to dwell on that too much. I'll actually call Joe and make sure I understood.
Well, and
Sage,
if
you're
it's
not
any
alone in that.
consolation, it takes, you know, minimum 10 years to even be in the DOT STIP, and there's nothing in the STIP. So
yeah, we just approved a new one. So, right.
And once again, Sandhill, Sardis Road, Louisiana, Sweeten Creek, and Solano River Road were all taken out of the STIP for the next 30 years. So it seemed to me like I would just wonder where the money is coming from. But maybe tangentially connected to that, it seems like another opportunity to highlight that previous staff members for the city of Asheville continue to ask me, why doesn't the city do more of its own building and maintenance of sidewalk and greenways instead of RFPing and contracting out? Because it does seem like a potential for cost savings. So I don't know where that fits, except for maybe at this committee level to look at some sort of analysis to bring in more of that construction because of our gap plan, because of our big projects and goals and bond funding. It would help me to know if that's like a worthwhile cost benefit analysis for us to consider and move forward with, and if it would require some sort of budget amendment to engage a hiring process.
I don't know that I understand. You're saying that it could save city money if city employees did the work? When would their time, I don't know, that seems like their plates are pretty full. That'd be hard to imagine that would be not only a cost savings, but also a time savings. I mean, right now, I don't love how long it takes us to deliver infrastructure. I can't imagine that would expedite. Are you implying that we would hire and grow city staff to accomplish this?
So what I'm hearing is, in the past, this is something that would help staff to like look and see where this would land. But we had a stronger team of staff, a larger team to build our own sidewalks. And the question was, when we RFP out, those contracts are growing so fast. And a lot of times it's because we're bringing in staff members from outside of our city and even outside of our state. And we're not getting a lot of RFPs and for the contracting and bidding out for our sidewalks and greenways. That's been a constant issue with having to rebid and contract. So I understand why former staff members would reach out and be like, why don't you grow this internally and have more staff developing and investing in infrastructure and building it out regularly and maintaining it instead of constantly sending it out to RFP. But I don't fully understand the cost benefit analysis. So I'm not sure if it makes sense for us to look at it while we have such big transportation bond dollars in our community ready to get on the ground.
Kim, I hear you a little bit. And I recall Patton Avenue specifically, actually, we had our team do the sidewalk. Remember the removal of the trees and stuff? It was like a big deal. It was a big deal. We used CDBG money. We moved 300 grand so they could do it. Staff were super proud. They did super great work. Like I remember that as a moment. It was not that long ago. And I get what you're saying. And to Maggie's point, it's like nowhere in the near future, but nor is this. So, you know, like if we're going to plant seeds for how we're going to do it better in the future, both of these are good ideas. And we don't have the money for any of them right now.
So, but we'd never be able to build the case, dedicate resources unless we did the thoughtful planning that was done here. So I like that.
I feel like you have to plant seeds sometimes and they'll come back around in 10 years.
Especially because we just had this conversation about jobs. And if we were going to be an employer of choice and a second chance employer, couldn't we grow that kind of job within our own organization?
Well, I remember Deborah being so proud of the team too. Like it was a thing. So we have some of that.
All right. Any other questions or sentiments? If not, we'll move on to public comment. Kim.
Not about this agenda item, but before we begin public comment, I was reviewing the minutes, and I know it is a standard operating procedure just to have, a very basic minutes that is just a picture of the agenda item, if it passed, the basic vote. What is missing is any sort of even acknowledgement that we had public comment. And we do have public comment at this committee level pretty regularly. So I would certainly support, even if it was just what, as we hear, like caller ending in 4-digit number, 2 or 3 words. It could be like support of policy or concern for budget implementation. I don't know. It's just an idea. Right now, it looks like we don't have any public comment, and we do.
All right, with that, let's go to the public comment. Do we have any callers, Katie?
Yes, we do. Just one moment, please. Caller ending in 5202. Your line is now open and you will have 3 minutes.
This is Rachel Cohen with Sunrise Movement. Can I just get a quick thumbs up or nod? You can hear me.
Hey, Rachel,
I can
welcome.
hear you.
Great. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to say that if someone tuned into this meeting without understanding the committee's scope, they would have no clue that addressing the climate crisis was within your purview. That is inexplicable to me. Last week and in written comments, we shared many specific things you could do to demonstrate that you're taking the climate crisis seriously. And a lot of them were low-hanging fruit about reporting about what's already going on. Not only have you not done a single one of those suggestions, you have even failed to bring the climate crisis into several of the things that are indeed on your agenda. For example, the monthly update from the city manager's office does not include a sustainability section. Why? Second example, when we heard, conversations around from the Economic Development Coalition, which were very informative and helpful, I didn't hear a lot of give and take about how are we factoring the energy transition into these plans? How is that going to impact the workforce development planning and workplace development that they're referencing in terms of building up capacity for clean energy production and deployment? So that is just a very deep disappointment to me and many others that I work with on a day-to-day basis. It demonstrates again that climate change is not a priority for this committee. And I just want to say it hurts. It hurts a lot because our future does depend on this. I expect more of all of you. And that's all I've got to say today. Thank you.
I'll just add, you've made this comment a couple times, and we are working with our staff. There's a lot happening. There's 1,300 employees, many of which are fully integrated with our sustainability work. And it's really important that as we have a very full agenda and a complex committee with lots of topics, that we're slating them in a timeline where there's conversation to be had, where there's updates to be had, where there's information or where there's policy discussions to be had. So I hear the frustration as a climate advocate in my day job. The city's working very hard and does a lot of work, and we don't want to just have a presentation for presentation's sake. We want to use this time for policy discussion, and there's stuff coming up on future agendas. So look forward to hearing what you think about those conversations as they come up. Katie, are there any other calls?
No, Madam Chair, that was our only one.
All right. All right. Well, it's a quick call. Oh, but Ben.
Before you adjourn, and caller reference this, but I do want to point the committee members. We included in your agenda materials a kind of a monthly update on key projects and initiatives. Those categories aren't static. They may change based on the department's update. So next month, we'll hope to have like the quarterly data reporting that you've already asked us for. If we've talked about having that. So this monthly memo is really just in addition to that, and an easy way to share key updates with this committee that may not require a presentation, but our departments feel like are important. So I would ask you, let's try that for a month or two, see if it's something you find value in. And if you do, we'll continue that reporting. If you don't, you won't hurt our feelings. That's okay. Or if there's things you'd want to see different about that, just let us know. So again, we're just trying to include information for you to have as we move into this work plan for PED. So thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
And I did look at that and I think it's great. And I feel like some of the items are so big that it could be quarterly, because I know a monthly report, it can just be a lot on staff when you have like 50 other things that are also monthly. So, when I look at that, I think I could get an update on those things every 3 months. And I do love the format. So before we stress ourselves out trying to make them monthly, maybe we could space them out a little bit more.
Yeah, and I agree that having our sustainability indicators is important. And we've talked about this a lot in agenda prep meetings, that the sustainability department's working on that and getting close to being ready to have that information to share. As we know, Kira is doing a fantastic job as the interim, while our longstanding sustainability director has stepped in to lead all of recovery. So giving them some grace to be prepared to contribute to these is going to be nice.
I'll go ahead and jump in here. If anyone's watching live or watching the archive of this meeting and you go to ashevillennc.gov, go to government, scroll down to committees and click on Planning Economic Development Committee, you'll see in the meeting materials, there's a new document. In the meeting materials, it's regular, it looks like it's called PEDE Regular Report. It's a memo, and it goes into detail about our economic recovery, transportation, downtown management and activation, and events and entertainment are on this month's memo. It has a lot of details, including links for information.
All right. We don't have, yeah, thanks everybody. Take care. Bye. Thanks, staff. Bye.